Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the lecture series of Computer Fundamental. In today's lecture, I am going to discuss about the secondary memory. In my last class, I have discussed about the memory and its types. So basically, memory is a storage area where we store data and instruction. Memory is of three types: primary memory, secondary memory, and the cache memory. In last class, I have already discussed about the primary memory, different types of primary memory, and the cache memory. In today's lecture, I am going to cover secondary memory, different types of secondary memory. Also, I will give some brief idea about the flash memory. So let's get started with the secondary memory. If you remember, the operating speed of the primary memory or main memory is fast as possible as to cope up with the CPU speed. These high-speed storage devices are very expensive and hence the cost per bit of storage is also very high in the case of your primary memory. The limited size of the main memory is also one of the reasons for the development of the secondary memory. In primary memory, we can store up to hundreds of millions of bytes of data for the CPU to process. However, as we have huge amount of data, so we always required an additional memory in all the computer system. This additional memory is called your auxiliary memory or the secondary storage. So if you compare the secondary memory and the primary memory in respect of size and in respect of speed. In respect of speed, the primary memory is more faster as compared to the secondary memory, and in respect of size, the size of primary memory is limited. It can store a limited amount of data, while the size of secondary memory is more as compared to the primary memory. So let's see what is secondary memory. In secondary memory, the cost per bit of storage is low. However, the operating speed is lower as compared to the primary memory. In secondary memory, we can store huge volume of data, and this data is stored on the permanent basis. It doesn't mean that if the electricity is cut, the data will be erased. In the secondary memory, we can store the data for a permanent basis, and it is transferred to the primary storage when it is required. Basically, the most widely used secondary storage devices are your hard disk, CD, DVD, and pen drive. But earlier we used magnetic tape, magnetic drum, and floppy disk as the secondary memory. So first we will see what is magnetic tape, magnetic drum, and floppy disk. Also I will discuss about your hard disk, CD, DVD. So let's see the magnetic tape. Magnetic tape are used for your large computers like mainframe computers where we have to store a huge volume of data for a longer period of time. Earlier, these were used with the personal computer also. However, the cost of storing data in magnetic tape is inexpensive. That's why we can store a huge amount of data in the magnetic tape. Here, the tape consists of a magnetic material which helps to store the data permanently. The size of the magnetic tape is 12.5 mm to 25 mm wide plastic film type and 500 meter to 1200 meter long, which is coated with the magnetic material. If you will see the diagram, here you can see that it is coated with the magnetic material and it is a white plastic film type. Here the deck is connected to the central processor and the information is fed into or read from the magnetic through the processor. So here you can read as well as write into the magnetic tape. This magnetic tape is very similar to the cassette type recorder. Now let's come to the another secondary memory, that is magnetic tape. The magnetic tape looks like very similar to the gramophone record, which is circular like a disc coated with the magnetic material. It is used in computer for storing the data. It rotates with very high speed inside the disk drive. Here the data are stored on both the surfaces of the disk. Magnetic disks are mainly popular for the direct access storage. Here we can access the data directly from the magnetic disk. Now let's see about the floppy disk. The floppy disk is similar to your magnetic disk. It is 3.5 inch in diameter. The capacity of a 3.5 inch floppy is 1.44 megabyte. If we compare the cost of the floppy disk, it is cheaper than the other storage devices and it is very portable. However, the floppy is a low cost device particularly suitable for personal computer system. If you remember, the floppy disk looks like in this way. Earlier we used this floppy disk to store the information or data. Now let's come to the most commonly used secondary devices like your hard disk. Hard disk is the most commonly used secondary storage device. It is, although generally it is fixed inside the CPU cabinet. Most of the time the hard disk is already fixed inside the CPU cabinet, but still we use some external hard disk which are available in the market. Here we can store a huge amount of data and also it provides relatively quick access to the data stored on it. If you will see the how hard disk look likes and what is the features of the hard disk, we will see a hard disk is a set of numerous disks which is stacked one above the other with the cylindrical spindle in between. In hard disk we have a number of disks which are stacked, which are kept over one another with the cylindrical spindle in between. Here the data is recorded electromagnetically in the form of the concentric circle called track. Then the track are further divided into block. In the hard disk drive, we can perform both the read and the write operation, and there is a read write head mounted on the arm which is placed next to the stacked disk. So this is about your hard disk. In my next lecture, I will discuss about